media.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. I told you that if anything else developed within the Jasper wildfire, I'd be bringing it to your attention. Well, today, I want to talk a little bit about what might have caused the Jasper wildfire, as well as the massive misstep that the Canadian federal government is taking in terms of declaring this a win in terms of their response, and why, well, I've got many questions. If you've noticed in the news lately, if you've been following what's happened in Jasper, roughly 1/3 of the town has been destroyed by fire. Some photos have shown churches that are burnt to the ground, yet trees near it are completely untouched by fire, which does raise some questions, although I'm sure science has a way. I've seen people saying that younger, healthier trees that are rich in moisture don't catch fire as easily, they don't burn as easily. There's a plethora of explanations going on around there right now, and I'm certainly not here to spread any kind of misleading facts or doomsday prophecies, but rather questioning. It's always important to question what is going on. When you look at the federal government and you look at what's happened, there's a tweet here saying you were warned years ago. Too late now to pretend to care. And now Brian Lilly tweeting out, here's just one example of the Conservatives asking about the plans for the Liberal government to prevent a devastating forest fire in Jasper National Park. The government knew about stands of dead trees killed by the pine beetle and didn't act. This is from 2017. Let's take a listen to what was said here.
Mr. Speaker, Jasper National Park, one of Canada's major tourist destinations, has been devastated by the pine beetle infestation. Much of the forest is dead or dying. The dead trees are a tremendous fuel load and present a significant risk to the community of Jasper. Residents are concerned for their own safety and that of the visitors and the security of their homes. With a high risk of wildfires fueled by a forest devastated by the pine beetle, have the Liberals put a plan in place to protect this park?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is absolutely committed to the ecological integrity of our national parks. That is my first priority as the minister. We are working very hard in all of our parks, including Jasper National Park. I look forward to talking to the member further about this and seeing how we can move forward. Thank you.
So essentially, Jasper National Park was a tinderbox for this kind of event to happen. And we all know that Justin Trudeau has spent the majority of his career ignoring Alberta, that he really has no merit when it comes to how he feels about our province. However, one of the things that's been thrown around and one of the things that people have talked about is how this is going to be used, and even I said it, this is going to be used to prop up climate change agendas. The Trudeau government is not going to use this travesty, this terrible, terrible catastrophe, any more than as a political push to say this is why your carbon taxes should go up. This is why we need to worry about the environment. My question to Justin Trudeau is, if we're so concerned about the environment, and we're going to get to Stephen Guilbeault in a little bit here, if they're so concerned about the plastics in our environment, paying more carbon tax so we can have a white Christmas, why are we sending all of our money to other countries instead of investing in water bombing planes that are essentially designed to handle these types of problems, when roughly 60% of our country is covered in forestry? Why don't we have the necessary equipment to handle these kind of catastrophes? I'm sure, again, there's an answer, but that is the question I ask when it takes so long to get things under control. One of the things that's been thrown around is if you've ever heard about DEWs, or directed energy weapons. This is one thing people have been chiming out to me on Twitter. People have been talking about, and I do know of its technology, but if you haven't heard about DEWs, we're going to get into it. I'm going to give a little bit of explanation because this goes a little bit into the territory of, was this done on purpose? Was this done to generate political pull? Is it designed so that Trudeau's friends who contract to build new homes, who can essentially buy up the land in cities like Jasper, can benefit? Direct energy weapons, such as lasers, use energy fired at the speed of light. These weapons can produce force that ranges from deterrent to damaging to destructive. Many countries, including the United States, are researching their use. Because they use energy instead of bullets or missiles, directed energy weapons could be less expensive per shot and have virtually unlimited firing power. However, the long-term health effects of these weapons are unclear. They also generally have a shorter range than conventional weapons, and weather conditions such as fog and storms can make certain directed energy weapons less effective. Now, why this matters, there's a surge in interest. Notice that. There's a surge in interest in directed energy weapons from several nations, including the United States, primarily for counter-drone missions. These weapons use electromagnetic energy to cause effects ranging from deterrence to destruction. They offer capabilities that conventional weapons may not, but challenges have so far prevented widespread operational use. Again, you could use things like electromagnetic pulse to take out people's equipment, much like a UAV. If you know anything about military equipment. What's important here is what it shows down here in the spectrum of high energy lasers. Directed energy weapons are concentrated electromagnetic energy to combat enemy forces with assets. These weapons include high energy lasers and other high power electromagnetics such as millimeter wave and high power microwave weapons. Unlike weapons that fire bullets or missiles, DEWs can respond to a threat in different ways. For example, they can temporarily degrade electronics on a drone or physically destroy it. So again, they can take out multiple forms of equipment or electronics. What's really important here is the use of the laser. High-energy lasers produce a very narrow beam of light, usually in the infrared or visible region. They are typically used on one target at a time. The beam can be pulsed or continuous, generating a power output of at least 1 kilowatt. This output is 200,000 times greater than a typical laser pointer and is capable of melting steel. Many people have pointed out that DEWs could be responsible for the fire in Jasper if our government was so corrupt as to burn down a national treasure such as Jasper Park or the town of Jasper. I know people often get mad when you say Jasper or Jasper National Park. The problem is the jurisdiction, and we're going to talk about the jurisdiction. This jurisdiction is Parks Canada. A lot of people are yelling at Danielle Smith saying, "You're not doing enough. What is your response to this?" Now, I showed a video last week with Danielle Smith pulling back tears over what's going on in Jasper. But what comes into play more often than not now, again, is this thought of DEWs really so far out of reach? We see here on this tweet, KA Law tweeting out, why does that Jasper wildfire look convenient? Look at the date on the Councillor Scott Wilson's letter. Let's take a look at this letter. Dated April 16th, 2024. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend CMHC National Housing Convention Conference in Ottawa. To say it was an eye-opening, hopeful, and inspiring would be an understatement. I feel I am returning home with a toolbox full of ideas, proven methodology, and a gumption to tackle Jasper's acute and unique housing crisis. Across the country, municipalities are challenged with the same similar crisis. 3.5 million homes are needed by 2030. We are no different to the rest of the country. In fact, that we seek what we need is safe, stable, and appropriate housing for all. Legalizing density is the single most important thing we can do in Canada to deliver housing in a climate-smart way. We must end exclusionary zoning. Low density is a bad policy. Across the country, the mantra is infill. This is the low-hanging fruit, the most cost-effective, the most climate-friendly, the easiest on municipality infrastructure. Lucky for us, this is our only option. We have the benefit of always knowing we aren't building outwards, so we must build inwards. We know the playing field. We must enable homeowners, businesses, builders, developers, and government to get to work and solve our own problem. remove parking minimums. Here it is. We are a 15-minute city. We have public transit. To enforce the antiquated view that vehicles make precedent over housing has to end immediately. And we're talking about zoning. We're talking about moving inward. Again, I'm not trying to spread false information here. I don't want to sound like a doomsday conspiracy theorist here. But does it all not line up a little bit? Does it all not make you at least ask some questions? I have questions. People are saying, again, and what I reported was that it was a bear cub that was electrocuted that somehow started the fire. At least that's what Parks Canada was claiming at the time I filmed that video. I'm sure that will change over time. Friend of the channel, Marty Up North, talking about Stephen Guilbeault. Now I want him to come for a visit and makes the same speech in Edmonton. He can bring all the security he wants. I don't think it would make a difference. Ottawa hates Alberta. True statement. True statement. But Marty, of course, retweeting his own tweet earlier saying this person is celebrating a monumental screw-up as a victory. Let's take a listen.
The individual stories of bravery and hardship are something Canadians will always remember. This was the single largest fire in Jasper National Park history. Despite such hardship, it is worth celebrating that we have not reported any injuries or casualties. Around 358 structures, or roughly 30% of the town, was lost to the fire. But inversely, around 70% of the town was saved. Years of preparation, forest management, simulated evacuations, and firefighting efforts paid off. Everyone right now is thinking about Jasperites who have been impacted. On Friday, the federal government announced we would match any donation made to the Red Cross along with the province. That means your donation is worth triple the value.
Again, I just want to interrupt for a second to ask the question. If the Canadian government is so concerned about what happened in Jasper, why are we giving away billions of dollars to other countries instead of funding to purchase the required equipment to take care of and look after Canadian cities and towns? These water planes, when you calculate the money that's been sent overseas, we're talking dozens of fleets of these planes if we were solely just to purchase those. This is a monumental cluster of a mess brought on by the Canadian federal government. And Stephen Guilbeault talking like, hey, everybody, let's all do our part again, right? I care about the environment. Now, naturally, he is the environment minister. Very poor one at that. Let's continue.
Urge Canadians to send support. The Jasperites and all those impacted, my main message today is that our government is fully behind you and will be for as long as it takes for your town to recover. And once we get past fighting this fire, we're eager to figure out how we can start rebuilding the community and supporting those who have been impacted. We're speaking closely to the province as well as the town about coordinating financial supports. As Mayor Arlen has pointed out, the problem was not for lack of coordination or resources, but because they were facing a raging inferno that defied conventional firefighting tools. Jasper National Park and the community of Jasper hold a special place in all our hearts. We must work together to get that back as soon as possible, restore the community of Jasper and the lives and businesses impacted by this terrible event. Thank you. Merci.
I don't know what I just listened to there or what you guys listened to, but again, I have to give context. But at the same time, I don't know what they're smoking to think that this is a victory for them. I really don't. Again, there is cloud seeding technology out there. There are things that could have been done to help at least reduce the toll that we saw in terms of loss in Jasper. Now, as Stephen Guilbeault had mentioned, there is no injury or loss of life reported. in these fires. However, people who live in this town, again, they're not even allowed to go back in. They're not allowed to go try and salvage whatever they can out of their lives that's left. They're told to stay out. And this is where it comes into a question of jurisdiction. Marty up north again tweeting out, Danielle wants Ottawa to stick to its jurisdiction. Mark can't figure it out. If Ottawa can't manage Jasper and the other national parks, hand them over. Hand over our share of the CPP while you're at it and take back your RCMP. Alberta Strong and Free, who's with me now. Of course, Mark Spector tweeting out, I'm not an expert on fire jurisdiction, Dave. Smith doesn't want the feds' help on housing, the dental plan, or much else, but she's waiting for them to fix Alberta fires. Again, this is where I've said at the beginning of the video, they're using this for political motivation, for political gain, political grease on the wheel, so to speak. They don't care about Alberta. If the feds cared about Alberta as much as they care about countries like the Ukraine, this fire would have been out the minute it started. Or at least very quickly. Premier Danielle Smith, of course, very frustrated as this article comes out saying she wants bus tours for Jasper evacuees, temporary housing while they rebuild. Keep in mind, if you join me on my live streams, which you should every Friday here on the channel, my wife and I sit in on those streams and we were talking about what happened in Jasper. One of the things she brought up is that a lot of these people could have been renters. They could have been employees that worked in the national park that perhaps don't have insurance because they're renters. What happens to all their stuff? What happens to their living quarters? Their lives? Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said she'd like to see bus tours organized for evacuees residents of Jasper so they can see the damage a wildfire did to their town for themselves and know what to expect when they're eventually allowed to return home. Smith made the comments on her province-wide call-in radio show on Saturday, where she told listeners she'd like temporary housing arranged for Jasper National Park residents so they can live in the town site while they rebuild their homes. Again, look, when I say allowed back in, I'm not talking about safety. I understand that there's certain protocols that go into place that say, look, you can and can't come back. But if things are contained, the federal government shouldn't be allowed to tell them you're not allowed to go back to your town. Look at your property, the property you purchased, that you technically own. Parks Canada has estimated 30% of Jasper's structures were damaged by the wildfire, with 358 of the town's 1113 structures destroyed. Alberta Wildfire announced on Saturday that the province-wide telephone town hall will take place on Monday at 6:30 p.m. for Albertans to ask questions. Again, I'm sure there will be lots of questions, again, as the time of filming of this video is before that town hall. Smith, along with Jasper Mayor Richard Ireland and other dignitaries, toured the evacuated town on Friday, where they passed the charred remains of the home where Ireland himself grew up. More than 20,000 people in and around the town, nestled in the Rocky Mountains 4 hours west of Edmonton, were ordered to evacuate late Monday night due to fast-moving wildfires. Relentless, fierce winds gusting up to 100 kilometers an hour challenged and eventually overwhelmed crews, and the southern fire broke through early Wednesday night and began wreaking havoc. The two blazes that menaced Jasper from the north and south earlier this week have since merged. The total area burned or partially burned is estimated at 360 square kilometers. Jeez, that's devastating. Smith notes temporary housing was also used during the reconstruction of High River, Alberta, after it suffered the devastating floods back in 2013. So we have seen a precedent where you set up a temporary community that allows people to live on site while rebuilding is occurring, Smith told her radio audience. Nothing that nearby Hinton, Alberta may be relied on for construction workers. The Canadian Armed Forces have already set up camp in Hinton, located on the edge of the national park, to provide extra assistance. She said she expected it would be close to 28 days before Jasper residents would be allowed to return to their town, explaining it took a similar amount of time before Fort McMurray residents got the green light to go home after it was hit by ferocious fires back in 2016. While Smith said that her tour of the town Friday after her tour on the town Friday, that critical infrastructure remained intact, including schools, the hospital, and water treatment services. She said on Saturday the staff needed to get inside the hospital to check for damage since there were reports the roof had been on fire. Because the town is part of Jasper National Park, rebuilding plans are taking shape with help from the federal government, Smith said. Again, this is what makes me question what we talked about earlier in the video with DEWs. The people, again, I'm not suggesting DEWs, but people have been saying they believe that this is the cause. Now, I'm not going to say whether it is or isn't, but when you look at Justin Trudeau and you look at Arrive Scam and you look at the Kielburgers, you look at the Aga Khan, you look at all these scandal that have gone on, but more importantly with Arrive Scam, when we see companies like Dalian getting all these billions of dollars in contracts from the Trudeau government, does it not make you question who is going to get the government contracts to help rebuild Jasper National Park homes? Does it not make you ask that? Like, I've heard rumors of BlackRock, other companies. Like, what are we doing here? We've already begun a joint task force on how recovery is going to take place, trying to time when people will be able to return to their community, and I'm very hopeful it will come back better than ever. A statement posted late Friday night said that fire crews were taking advantage of cool and wet conditions to make progress on addressing hot spots in smoldering buildings. The same statement also noted that crews were also working to control hotspots along the wildfire perimeter nearest Jasper town site. Again, the biggest problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm not interested in citing blame at this point. My question is, how and when do people who live in Jasper or Jasperites get back to their normal lives as quickly as possible with less government interference as possible? This whole travesty is a nightmare, and I can't imagine what it's like for any of these residents to have to get photos of the damage of their homes from news stories or from posts on X from the premier going through or the mayor going through to find out if your home is still there or if your home is gone. That's your life, and you're just supposed to put it on hold while the Canadian government talks bureaucracy and uses your travesty, your terrible, terrible natural disaster moment, if it is a natural disaster, to grease the wheel for the next political election. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you believe that the Jasper fire was natural? Do you believe that this could have been DEWs? Let me know your thoughts down below. Again, I'm not really concerned with as much as what was done, other than the fact that the government was warned about this in advance and did nothing. And again, the writing on the wall tends to point in that direction. Aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video has earned your subscription. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please make sure to hit that button down below. Leave a thumbs up. YouTube and the government in particular don't like these stories getting out, so make sure to leave a thumbs up on the way out. It does help us in the algorithm. I know it's a long video. I just wanted to make sure I covered all of the bases. While you're clicking that subscribe button, make sure to turn on your bell for notifications to join me live each and every Friday night here on the channel for Friday Night Fringe, my live streaming show where we sit down and discuss everything that's gone on in the past week in politics, as well as everything coming up in the week ahead, as well as some back and forth within our community. It's always great to hear what you guys have to say outside of making these videos, and I look forward to seeing you each and every Friday here on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.